Between Life and Death by Jaclyn. Chapter 35. I gaped, flat out gaped. When I had asked Vaughn to leave, I thought it would have been on foot, not grab, poot, and here we were, miles away, in his room back at the mansion. His room. I had peeked my head through the door before, but I had never been in it, and usually it was dark, which meant I couldn't see much, but now, courtesy of the soft light that shone through the windows, I could see everything. Judging by its ridiculous, sprawling size, his room was the master suite. From floor to ceiling to everything in between, all of it was black, with the lightest doses of dark, rich golds. The furniture was larger, bulkier, like it was crafted especially for him, for his size. Directly to my right, a canopy bed crafted from a dark wood was wrapped in black silk, a large chest at the foot of it. To my left, two leather chairs sat beside the bay window, and down from them sat an incredibly solid-looking desk, its top littered with papers and various books. Behind the desk was a private library, the shelves reaching to the ceiling. There was no ladder to reach the top shelves, and I wondered how one would get those books down, but knowing Vaughn, he could probably just flick a finger, and they would float down to him. Speaking of Vaughn and his mysterious abilities, how did you do that? How did we just poof here? I asked, my palms against his chest, his arm hooked around my waist. Is it part of your wind curse? Something like that, he answered with a sinfully handsome grin. Thick black lashes naturally rimmed with kohl emphasized his midnight orbs as they lowered, snagging on my lips before he slowly pulled away. I watched his steady fingers work as he unbuckled the black straps that secured his chest plate. While he did this, he walked over to the large, wooden chest painted with a dark stain and inlaid with gold strips of metal. When he stood in front of it, the lid spontaneously opened, but I scented no magic in the air. So you two know each other, I said, more to myself than him, eyeing the chest where he stored his fighting leathers. Why did he call you Blood King? There are a variety of reasons I have been given that name. He folded the leather straps against the shining chest plate and set it inside the chest. The main reason is because of who I become when I am on the battlefield. I swallowed that bit of information. Have you fought against Arkan? In battle? I have, Vaughn replied as he gently tossed the fur into the chest. He was lucky to walk away after. There was no ego stroking in his words. He was simply stating a fact. Arkan served the king, a direct enemy of the cursed rebels. Why would Vaughn? My eyes shifted from the floor to him. Why didn't you kill him? Vaughn turned, obsidian eyes meeting mine. I would have if it weren't for a deal I made. A deal? What deal? Vaughn began rolling up his sleeve. I was in a position to take his life, but I spared it and made a deal instead. He rolled his forearm, and my gaze lowered to the golden spear trapped between lush, feminine lips. What did you get in return? I asked, tempted to reach out, to touch it, to trace it. Vaughn grinned, the wicked twist of his lips enough to drive me feral. I received a lot more than I bargained for. I couldn't tell if I was turned on or jealous by the inclination in his words. The lips made me think of a kiss, but if he got more than he bargained for, are you telling me you got laid in return? I asked bluntly, warring between jealousy and my own arousal. Knowing full well that Vaughn only had an appetite for women, I wondered what kind of woman would barter for Arkan's life. But my thoughts were scattered when his gaze captured mine. That sinful smile spread. Many, many, many times, little goddess. I sucked in a breath and indecent heat, rolling across my cheeks. He chuckled softly, noting my reaction, before he turned back to the chest. I watched him, my attention snagging on the way his tunic stretched across his broad shoulders, a slight ripple in the middle, emphasizing just how stretched the fabric was. His muscular arms, corded with veins, contracted as he gathered his unbound hair and pulled it up into a top knot, exposing the one shaved side, a few strands falling out. He lolled his head back, glancing over his broad shoulder at me. See something you like? I smirked coyly. I see a few things. Like. He turned, his gait a slow prowl as he moved towards me, his movement reminding me of a hunter tracking a deer on silent, deadly feet, like he was trying not to scare me away before he stole the very life from me. He stopped when our bodies were but a breath away. Your lips, for one, I replied, my gaze drifting to that full, sensual mouth, ever so kissable, with its demanding, claiming tongue. He rumbled as he leaned forward, his mouth painfully close to mine, but not enough to touch. I sucked in a breath. He smirked. He knew what he was doing, and goddess above, was he ever good at it? And your shoulders, I said, my voice throatier, parched, broad enough. He draped my arms over his shoulders, one at a time to rest your ankles on. His words, his voice, it was a sinful combination. The image they stirred, of bare skin and panting, heavy breaths. I nibbled my bottom lip, my arousal building. And your arms. I looked up to him expectantly. His hand gripped the fabric at my hip. Bunching it, he pulled me into him in one swift move. Strong enough to lift you up as I fuck you against the wall. I swallowed. Damn. He chuckled softly, those dark eyes. Watching me, lapping at me. A knock sounded from the door. Annoyed, I shifted my gaze from the hottest male I had ever laid eyes upon to the ultimate cockblock, Soren, who poked his blonde head through the cracked door. You're back, he exclaimed loudly as he barged in, butchering the moment between Vaughn and me. Vaughn looked even less pleased, although he didn't use his little choking party trick on Soren, to my surprise. Instead, he left me standing there and sat in an unoccupied leather chair, his long legs spread out, dominating the girth of the seat. It was impossible not to notice the evidence of his attraction to me pressing against the seam of his pants. Goddess divine. I reaffirmed my hopes that he had something stuffed in there because from this view, he looked cataclysmic. I looked away, fighting the telltale red burning my cheeks. Yes, I am, I said, straightening my skirts. Were you successful? He asked, hands slipping into his pockets. I get the feeling that if you really wanted to know, you could easily find out, I replied honestly. I had not felt his presence for a while. Still, as small or as mouse-like as he made his shadow seem, he was still there, hiding in the deep crevices. I try not to, he said sheepishly, his gaze dropping to the floor, still beating himself up over it. I tapped him playfully on the arm as if to say, don't worry about it. Yes, I know where Caleb is, I said, hardly able to believe it myself. Soren grabbed my hands with excitement, beaming a vivid, white smile. And it dawned on me just then that he was a true friend, sharing in my triumph, just as the others would when I told them. I sensed something scatter across my mind. Sorry, he said, frowning. I let it slip. It's okay, I offered, noting that Vaughn was silent, an unusual state for him. I would like to talk to everyone together so I can tell them about Caleb. Can you gather everyone in the sitting room? I'll let them know. Give me 10 minutes, he replied before he left the room, leaving me alone with the sinful, lascivious male. I turned slowly. His powerful body swallowed the chair beneath him. One tattooed arm draped over the curved arm of the chair. The other moved to his muscular thigh. He tapped it twice, silently commanding me to sit in his lap, his metal rings glinting in the light. Willfully, I complied and seated myself in his lap, my rear supported by his one leg, my legs stretched out over his other. Like this, he still possessed a great deal of height over me. Did you hear that? I asked, draping my arms over his shoulders, my fingers lacing at the back of his neck. He purred in that deep, bourbon tone. His hand traced small circles against the small of my back, his fingers, like a matchstick, lighting my nerves on fire wherever he touched. I smiled mischievously. We have 10 minutes. That a single finger coiled under my chin as he gently tipped it up. His gaze locked with mine. Is not nearly enough time. I sputtered. Not nearly enough time? A dark smile graced his lips and he nodded, his voice dropping an octave. I intend to worship this body of yours for hours, little goddess. For hours? I whispered breathlessly, picturing him wearing nothing but that carnal grin as he lowered his face between my legs. For hours, he confirmed, just before he brought his mouth down on mine. Kissing Vaughn was like taking a shot of bourbon, smooth, neat, addictive, and it always left me craving more. His arms wrapped around my waist, the chair groaning in relief as we rose. He carried me over to the large desk, the papers and pens and candles suddenly gone. I wondered if my clothes were next. Hoped they were because I was going to combust. Slowly, he slid me down the length of his torso, his body, especially his belt and what rested beneath, providing friction against my core as he set me on the bulky desk. Gently, he pushed me onto my back. I shifted my hips as he took his dreadfully sweet time removing my skirts, revealing my moonlit skin beneath. His fingers drifted along the inside of my leg, a whisper of a touch, as he purred, "You are intoxicatingly beautiful, little goddess." I inhaled the moment, taking in the mighty warrior standing over top of me, those otherworldly eyes exotic and wild. Right now, they looked more beast than man. His hand gripped my leg as his hot, branding mouth kissed the inside of my knee. He nipped at it playfully, a carnal grin spreading across his lips. Slowly, he took his time, working his way up my leg, that heated gaze occasionally flicking back to mine. Every so often, he suckled my flesh, and I could feel the suggestive scratch of his sharp canines, causing the skin to sting in all the right ways. I moaned as his mouth moved closer to my throbbing core. Goddess divine, he was so close now. I reached for my underwear, they were in the way. He caught my wrist. So eager, he teased, clicking his tongue as if I were in trouble. He jerked my hand upwards, pinning it over my head. With his free hand, he dragged his knuckles over that sensitive spot at the apex of my quaking thighs, his eyes meeting mine. So fucking wet. I trembled, the cadence in his voice acting like a praising stroke. He massaged me there, the pathetically thin barrier of my underwear adding to the erotic nature. I twisted, my body shaking as I lay back, losing myself in the sensation of him touching me, stroking, and swirling. I moaned as the crescendo built, higher and higher until his hand stopped. Not yet, little goddess. I glared at him, wondering what sort of treachery this was. Swollen and throbbing, I was ready. My free hand darted down. If he wouldn't give it to me, I would take it for myself. Little thief. I will not let you steal this from me. He scolded softly as he grabbed my hand and forcefully raised it over my head, pinning it there with the other. A sprinkle of light flashed across his onyx eyes as he pulled his hand away, the pressure replaced with something else, something that snaked around my wrists, binding them tightly in place. I looked up and gasped my underwear. They wove around my joined wrists, the fabric nailed down to the desk. What the? I tugged against them, but the more I did, the tighter they grew. My head jerked back to Vaughn, his eyes firmly set on mine, darkness swirling within them. I caught the warning those eyes held, that once I let him inside, there would be no going back. With his gaze firmly locked on mine, his hands slid to my legs. Slowly, he pressed them wider, testing me, testing my understanding of what this meant. Oh, but I understood perfectly, and even though a small part of me wanted to clamp my legs closed, to run from the devastatingly beautiful creature that loomed before me, the bigger part of me craved this, craved him, choosing this. I let my legs fall open. My offering brought a devilishly handsome grin to his lips as he murmured under his breath, "Good girl." His fingers returned to that sensitive little bud, but this time, the cloth barrier was gone. He ran a finger along my sex before he dragged my silky wetness upwards, spreading it over those electrified nerves, working them. His touch a sinister thing. I bucked my hips, wiggling under the intensity of it as his fingers skillfully worked that sensitive piece of me. With his other hand, he teased my entrance, testing the wetness there before he slipped one finger inside. A little breath of air escaped my lips. His fingers were so much larger than mine, and just the one felt deliciously divine. But when he put two in, I praised his name out loud. I lulled my head back, riding his fingers as they moved in and out, my breasts bouncing with each thrust, the fabric on them suddenly all too scratchy. As if Vaughn sensed my thoughts, suddenly my white tunic was gone, leaving me completely naked, and him still fully clothed, marking us on uneven territory, establishing who was in control, and who was not. It felt both filthy and freeing, all at the same time. Vaughn swirled his fingers so his palm faced upward, and with each stroke, he hit that sacred spot inside, all while his free hand worked the swollen bundle on the outside. I jerked my head up, watching the way his muscles moved as he pumped me, his prominent veins, and his tattoos, especially the one that matched mine, adding to the erotic nature of it all. When I realized that he hadn't taken his rings off, that they were still very much on his fingers as they glided in and out, something carnal howled inside of me. Filthy male. He drove me higher and higher. I fixated on his touch, my world cleaving apart as the swelling tidal wave forced me, step by step, closer to my crescendo. "Come for me, little goddess," he commanded, dark eyes watching me. Driven by rapture, my breathy moans filled the room as I orgasmed for him. For me. My body shook in the afterquake of it as it rippled through me in heavy, rapturous waves. I panted, my chest heaving for breath. My legs had gone numb. Slowly, he raised his fingers to his mouth. His eyes held mine as he licked a glistening finger from top to bottom with the tip of his long, thick tongue. I trembled at the sight of him, my beautiful, dark conqueror tasting his newest conquest to easily won, easily given. His irises, which had been as black as coal mere seconds ago, began to fill with color, a lush, indescribable color. It reminded me of the forest, of the freshly rained upon grass in late spring, of the leaves on a tall, sturdy oak tree. His eyes reminded me of home. I sprung forward, my hands suddenly free. Cradling his face, I exclaimed softly, "Your eyes." He smiled, and it was the most full smile I had ever seen. "How?" I asked, my voice but a whisper. "It is part of our bond," he answered, pressing a kiss against my palm. "Will my eyes change, too if my gaze dropped pointedly to the unattended bulge in his pants. He chuckled, shaking his head softly. No kitten, it doesn't work like that. How can you be so sure? My hand drifted to his pants, pulling him closer. Perhaps we should test it and see. A black brow shot up, a grin slipping to the corners of his mouth. He thumbed my bottom lip. As much as I would love to feel the sexy little mouth wrapped around me, not right now, little goddess. Why not? Are our 10 minutes already up? 10 minutes be damned, he growled. As he pressed me back down against the desk, he lowered to his knees, draping my thighs over his broad shoulders, one at a time. I want to taste you again. Vaughn! I screamed as his head dipped between my thighs. Powerful hands jerked me forward so that my caw ran parallel with the edge of the desk. Yes, kitten, he purred, his hot breath fanning my sensitive, swollen sex. His tongue flattened, slowly sweeping along my slit, licking me from bottom to top, claiming my body, and damning my soul in the process. He did it again. I had never been licked in such a primitive way before. His tongue dipped inside me, his fingers spreading me, allowing him deeper access as he drove his tongue in and out. His mouth was so wet, so hot, and that tongue was so incredibly powerful, relentless. Fuck, I gasped, my body rolling sensually. I gripped the edge of the desk, my nails biting into the wood. His chuckle rumbled through me, vibrating into me, and my head rolled back, a moan escaping my lips. His fingers pressed on either side of that sensitive spot, swirling it better than I ever could. Vaughn, I praised, his delightful ministrations working me at all the right angles, guiding me higher and higher. I was so close now. Just when I was about to come, he pulled his tongue from me, cutting my pleasure off. Pain sliced through me as he bit. He bit. That sensitive bundle of nerves. You bit me, I hissed in disbelief. It was both erotic and terrifying. I did, he purred, his dark eyes settling on me. And I will do it again if you tried to come without my blessing. What? I huffed, my breathing sporadic. Like your lips, your orgasms belong to me, kitten, he purred before he delved back between my thighs. That's. His tongue swirled circles around that sensitive, swollen bud. Oh. I lost track of my thoughts as two of his fingers slipped in, snatching the air from my lungs. Hot, liquid heat pooled low in my belly as he used his tongue and fingers on me, the two of them working together, burning me in rapture and drowning me in pleasure. It was a wicked, tantalizing affair. 2 failed attempts at an orgasm, and 2 dizzying bites later, I could not even begin to articulate how hard I had gotten off when he finally let me come. When I came down from that cataclysmic high, I realized that Vaughn was going to ruin me. The truth, I wanted him to.